What do Fantastic Mr. Fox, the Royal Tenenbaums, and the French Dispatch all have in common? They are made by Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson is actually one of my favorite directors. I really love the way that he creates music, like movies, and how they're just so visual. And then I guess the way that he touches on like different subjects. It's like the French Dispatch for me actually is, oh well, the French Dispatch has become one of my favorites actually in recent years. Like I think for me what cements French Dispatch as one of my favorites actually is the soundtrack. um well, actually, hold on a second. Actually, no, I tell a lie. French Dispatch is not my favorite Wes Anderson film. Actually, it's Asteroid City, right? Because Asteroid City came out, I feel like either last year or the year before. And then obviously, Asteroid City has a very great soundtrack. Like, the song, the train Lost Train to San Fernando. And I remember when I watched Astro City in the cinema, and it was absolutely like, I think okay, so obviously this is the Phoenician Scheme review. When I watched this film yesterday, it was actually so random, and I felt like the movie was so funny. But in certain scenes, like I feel like the scene actually between Benedict Cumberbatch's character, so Uncle New Paul, and then obviously versus Corda, like when they had their little fight squabble, that reminded me of the squabble from Fantastic Mr. Fox actually. So when when the fox fights against the dog, like that one really reminded me of that, because obviously that scene in specific is so hilarious. Like obviously he's fighting a dog, and obviously the fight is just so random. It's because I think, remember, they're trying to save Ash in that scene. And then so obviously he ends up in some weird fight, and then it's basically just, and I think it also reminds me actually of another fight scene again actually in Fantastic Mr. Fox, where he's kind of having it out with one of the other animals. So it's like I feel like the fight scenes in his movies are always so random, so put together, and like they always just like don't like make sense. And I think also what me and my friend was saying was like, it's the fact that like the dialogue is done so well in Wes Anderson's movies, because they obviously always feel so like relaxed, and just like so normal. Like I loved in this movie in specific. So I rated Finishing Scheme a 4 out of 5. And then oh yeah, he was like she was like, oh yeah, why is it that why? And then he's like, oh, I have my reasons. And the fact that he would always repeatedly say in the movie, well, me, I feel safe. everyone's like oh Everyone's like, oh yeah, what's that noise? He's like, actually everything's fine. But I feel like that was, I guess, cementing what kind of character that Corda is, in the way of, he doesn't let anything like really get to him, even though he was being assassinated, like I guess being close to being assassinated every single frame. It was like, or every single different scene he was being like met with his life. I also found the scenes in specific where it would be like, yeah, like he was in heaven. I found those scenes really interesting. And then also, I suppose, when he had that scene where he bought a deer, and like he bought a deer, and then it was in front of his the woman who was Liesl's mother. And how I think, what's so interesting, I kind of also want to watch one of those deep dive videos, because I kind of really want to understand Phoenician Scheme and like all the different like layers of it, because I feel like with a Wes Anderson film you're always gonna have that. Like he wouldn't just put a scene in, and not really like explain it. It's like how a lot of directors do this. Like, when a director puts a scene in a specific movie, that he really is like, trying to explain something. And obviously it's not just in there to be a bit silly. Like, it's generally something what's it called, philosophical, right? It's actually something big, something that needs to be looked at and unpacked. And I also I kind of want to know, like, why was it that West even, I guess, decided to do those little segments to really like have Corda in this kind of dreamscape world, and like have them just in between the movie. And the funny thing is that I think with Venetian Scheme, I didn't really grasp what the scheme itself was really about. But aside from that, like obviously I came to a decision that it was four, because I was generally like, how I rate movies is generally on the basis of how much I feel I've enjoyed that movie. Like it's not for me in saying, oh, like if I grasp the storyline or anything like that, because it's all like, do you know what I mean? A storyline does make a movie better, but I do think that a lot of the time when you go into any movie, it's generally about your enjoyment, and also the things that like you're looking for and really wanting to enjoy. And I do think like the main thing for me in this movie was like the color. It was the comedy, and then also at certain points, I think like obviously this film also had like a religion element to it, of course, because of Liesel, like obviously because she was a nun. But like it was also like, she talked to people and be like, oh yeah, do you believe in God? They're like, no. And I think maybe also as somebody who's not very religious, I think that's probably why it stood out to me in this film in specific. I was generally like, it's so interesting that she wanted to become a nun, but the only reason I feel like is the only reason she became a nun, like what she explained, was she was obviously sent to a convent at the age of 5. So it's like, she was brought up in a church environment, so it's almost like, she just came into it, not really like, she generally believed it. And I think that's why when the movie reaches its end, I kind of feel like I think she becomes clearer on her, like, I guess where she stands with it. I mean, because of course, right, she decides that she's going to marry Michael Cera's character, which is he was like obviously he was supposed to be a secretary turned spy. I mean, he was a spy, but that part also in the movie was so random to me as well. And it also was like it was skipped over, but then in a way, I got it. I feel like sometimes Wes Anderson movies are quite fast paced, because I just think that's how he wants the story to be told. Like that's why the camera angles move in the way that they do. And I've always thought the camera angles are always very quite sitcom-y, but then also I feel like with sitcom angles they do move quite quickly, but then also like I feel like with Wes Anderson sometimes they are a bit delayed, but it's supposed to be a dramatic effect of them being delayed. Like I think in specific in this movie there was that scene where he was like to Liesel, oh yeah, we need to go. And then obviously he was like, wake up. And she was like, why? And she's like, and he's just like, wake up. And then obviously then he's like, oh, you need a new suitcase, you want like a picnic blanket. But then of course he says why, then he moves on to her bed and he starts explaining to her. I think it was a scene where he got a code from his machine, and so obviously he was explaining it to her. And then obviously the camera shifts, but it shifts very like slowly, do you know what I mean? It shifts very slowly, and then she's just like, and then they move it, and then but I just like how, I guess, relaxed those angles always feel. Like they don't feel like, you know what I mean? You're like, oh yeah. And then I think because it makes the audience be like, oh yeah, he should be moving the camera right now. And it's like, honestly, this is just Wes's work. This is how Wes directs. And it's like, if you've watched a few of his films, then you already know that's what you're in for. And I think it was so funny because when I was coming to like wanting to watch this film, I saw so many different reviews, and then I realized I can't go off reviews on trying to watch movies these days. It just can't work, because you really do have to make opinions for yourself. And if you go off the reviews, then it's just gonna put you off. Do you know what I mean? And I think you have a better time going into a movie without looking at them. Do you know what I mean? You have a better time. And I feel like obviously reviews have the power to put you off. That's just my basic thing. But I loved Phoenician Scheme, and you should watch Phoenician Scheme too, and also other Wes Anderson films. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.